May I ask who this is on the iPad? Ms. Cole, can you hear me?
All right, now try. Okay, there we go.
Is that it?
Yes, ma'am.
All righty. Thanks a lot.
No problem.
Who couldn't be here, and Jack, who was right here, and Diane, who
was a late grad and is out front.
Check, check. Oh, hello.
Hello?
I was just testing my microphone, Miss Cole.
Okay.
Hi, Aaron and William. Are you logged in?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I can pull up the PowerPoint for tonight. Can I share my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I am able to see it.
I'm just getting to the beginning. See, I always have to. Can you see that full screen now?
No, ma'am. I see your note. There you go.
There it
it's
is.
Popped up. Okay, I'm just going to make sure I can scroll through. You're seeing planning assumptions,
Yes, ma'am.
planning process and timeline.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll stop share now. Hopefully I know exactly what I did to get that on when the time comes.
And she heard it, and I'm like, Tara, just get up and walk out. And she's like, oh my God. She gets up.
There we go.
Aaron, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. We got you going here. How did we have this before? This might be better here. Let's see here. Might better be. We'll do this now. Okay. On your side. I wonder where we sit. Oh, we sit right here.
Coach. Coach, can you hear me?
Are you talking to Coach Nelson?
Yes, ma'am. Turn your microphone off.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we need to contact Mr. Klepak? He's usually on pretty early, and I don't see him yet.
He was on earlier. When I logged in earlier, there were like 5 of us on, and he was on there.
You
Oh,
see
there-
me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Let me know when we're live. We'll get started right at 6:30.
We are live. I can go ahead and start the recording now.
Considered the fourth key symptom of the virus. The study took data.
We'll be ready when you are, Mr. Klepak.
Got it. Thank you. That's a bottle of water, James.
I wouldn't blame you either way. Got Cheetos. These are the HEB ones. These are like the big time crunch ones. These are really good. Linda, you don't have to put that in the minutes or anything.
I'm eating Fritos.
I'm just waiting until 6:30 to start, so.
All right.
Welcome to the board workshop meeting of the Bay City ISD Board of Trustees. This is Thursday, July 23rd, 2020, and it is 6:30 p.m. Pursuant to Governor Abbott's temporary suspension of open meetings laws issued on March 16, 2020, and consistent with new state and local mandates on public health and social distancing, this workshop meeting of the Bay City ISD Board of Trustees will be conducted via a Zoom, which will be audible to the board and public at the link provided at the top of the agenda notice. A quorum of the Board of Trustees will not be physically present at one location, and for safety reasons, we will not be permitting in-person attendance by members of the public or staff. The public had the opportunity to submit comments for review by the board through email to Linda Estrada, the administrative assistant at the district administration building. And as of 6 o'clock today, we received none. This meeting is now called to order, and I'll take roll call for the trustees. Klepak here, Cole,
Here.
Manning, Nelson,
You're muted, Coach.
Here.
Here.
DeWitt,
Here.
Scartamai,
Here.
Tenon.
Here.
Okay, we have 6 trustees at this workshop, which makes a quorum. So we'll move to agenda item 2, Black Cat Blueprint, Back to School 2020, 2021. Miss Moya, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. If you will bear with me, I'm going to attempt to share my screen here. Just a second. It'll take me just a minute to get started.
That's good, Lisa. We can see the PowerPoint.
Again, okay, should pop up in just a second, full screen. Hang on. Okay, James, I'm gonna let you give me a thumbs up. Can you see full?
It's full screen. It's perfect. None of your notes are on the side or anything. It's awesome.
Okay, thank you so much. So trustees, first of all, before we get started with the Black Cat Blueprint Back to School 2021, I want to sincerely thank our executive team. That is our directors, our chiefs, and our principals. I cannot tell you how tirelessly they have worked the last 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, to put this together. And as all of you know, and the audience knows, there has been a lot of information coming from TEA, and it's very interesting because we're learning what flexible means, because you might make a plan A and then more information comes out, so you make a plan B. And this team has really done a great job. I think you'll be impressed with what they've come up with this evening. So the first thing I want to talk about tonight are the planning assumptions that we had. First of all, we know that COVID-19 will continue probably throughout the 2020-21 school year. We're hoping and praying that it will go away quickly, but reality is it may not. Our health and safety in district facilities will be extensive to maintain safe in-person environments for students and staff. We're going to have flexible learning options to meet all families' needs. We must be ready to pivot to 100% virtual learning at any time. You know, last spring, that caught us all off of our guard, but we really believe we've done a lot of work this summer, and we'll be ready to pivot to that if we need to. We also know that students will likely move between in-person and virtual learning environments throughout the course of the year. We also know that some students' needs are best met within schools, and we realize we've done surveys with staff. We met with a task force of staff members and parents recently, and we know that they have very sincere concerns about personal safety. So our planning process and timeline, we started immediately in June brainstorming. We had several sessions started with campus administrators, department directors, and chiefs. We didn't have a whole lot of information from TEA at that point. And as you may remember, in June, we thought we were on the downward spiral, that our cases were going down. So we started immediately planning. In June, we also started doing parent surveys. July 7th is actually when we got our first initial guidance released by TEA. So just like other school districts across the state, we've been scrambling since July 7th. July 13th and 14th, we had workshop planning sessions with our executive team. First, we met for several hours with principals, and then the next day we met with directors and On July 15th, we put out a staff survey because we wanted every staff member in Bay City ISD to have an opportunity to share with us what their concerns were and what their recommendations were as well. July 16th, TEA released updated guidance. And I will tell you, every day there's an updated piece of guidance from TEA. So we watch their website closely. July 21st, this week, we had a task force meeting of representatives from every campus, both teachers and parents, about a very, very, very good 2-hour meeting in which we got a lot of good feedback, a lot of good suggestions, and I'm very appreciative of those teachers and parents taking time out to give us that feedback. And then here we are tonight at our board workshop. So that kind of lays out the planning timeline for you. Originally, we looked at 3 possible models: 100% in person, hybrid, and 100% virtual. And as we were looking at those 3 models, we were really looking at possibly offering a hybrid model being students attend school 2 to 3 days per week and they work at home the other days. But what you may know is that July 7th, when we received the first initial guidance from TEA and from the governor, they released that school systems must provide daily on-campus attendance opportunities for students who will follow the public health procedures and whose parents who request daily instruction. We did our parent survey results, and as you can see, we had at that time 70% of our parents preferred an in-person model. 25% said they would only come back to school if it was a hybrid model, and 5% said they were already committing to a virtual model. So we considered that hybrid model, but as we considered that, one of our first considerations was TEA pretty much, as I said on July 7th, said that all districts must offer the opportunity for in-person instruction on campus to all grade levels 5 days a week. So we knew that had to be one of our options. Of course, we knew the other option had to be something that was virtual. When we looked at the hybrid model, we really considered that that would have a significant impact on families. There would be childcare challenges for students who were in and out of school 2 or 3 days a week. One of our big concerns was multiple children in a household. If you had high school and elementary and junior high students, what if they were on different hybrid models and different schedules? That would make things very difficult for parents. Transporting on different schedules and challenges for families, and then we would have significant challenges with extracurricular scheduling. We also really considered the impact on our teachers. When we really looked at those hybrid models, I think you'll see a lot of districts across the state are not offering the hybrid model because when it came down to it, safety was not greatly improved for campus staff. Knowing that every child would come to school at some point during the week, teachers were still going to be exposed to the same amount of students. We also know that there would be childcare challenges for our staff who were parents. If their children were off 2 days a week, how would they take care of childcare while they were at work 5 days a week? Planning for students who were learning in 3 different models would be difficult. If we had students who were coming 5 days a week, some students who were coming 2 days a week, and then some students who were 100% virtual, that would really create a planning challenge. And the next bullet, it would create a really big challenge as far as taking attendance for all 3 of those groups. As a teacher, you can imagine how difficult it would be to figure out who is supposed to be there on what day, and how do I take attendance for all 3 groups. The other thing we looked at was staffing, is that really 3 models would require more teaching staff than Bay City ISD can even acquire. The teachers just aren't out there to staff all 3 models.
Yeah, let me jump in right here, Lisa. And ultimately, the decision to not have the hybrid model, to some of Lisa's point, one, the burden that we would actually put on our teaching staff would just be too great. Again, as Lisa said, trying to manage 3 different instructional models, 1 virtual, in person, and then some who are there sometimes, and then some of the kids are learning from home. Almost an impossibility. Even if we wanted to take on this task, we don't have enough personnel to actually support this model. And I think it would just water down the instruction that we're providing for our kids. So we looked at it. It was not a fit for us here in Bay City.
So in Bay City ISD for the following school year, we'll have 2 models. Parents will, of course, be provided a choice for 100% in person or 100% virtual. So I know there's a lot of questions about what will that look like. First of all, our biggest concern is our health protocols for those students who choose and those families that choose 100% in person. So we wanted to highlight some of those things that our team is putting into place. First of all, we'll have daily self-screening of students and staff. And monitoring. I'm sorry, I think somebody has their microphone on. There'll be daily monitoring of temperatures before entering campus or boarding buses. We know that that's one of the symptoms of COVID. And so our Chief Operations Officer, Stuart Crouch, has researched temperature scanners that will be at every location that students arrive. We'll have multiple locations, and we'll be monitoring those temperatures when they come on campus. We will also, we've made a commitment to have aides on every bus that will monitor temperatures before a student gets on the bus. We'll have instruction and hygiene protocols for staff and students, hand sanitizer and disinfecting wipes in every classroom and common area, face shields or face masks for all students PK through 12 and all staff. And the state actually has shipped us a huge amount of PPE equipment. We've gotten part of that shipment in, and part of that is hand sanitizer, disinfecting wipes, face shields, and face masks for adults and children. And then, of course, I've already talked about and developed an increased cleaning schedule of classrooms and common areas. Again, Stuart Crouch, our Chief Operations Officer, was very proactive last spring. He could see this coming and had already ordered our own disinfectant foggers that our custodial staff will use in the classrooms in the common areas. And then additionally, we have signed a contract with a company called Germ Blast that will come in and do intensive disinfection of the campuses periodically.
Actually, Lisa, Germ Blast is going to work throughout the district. So not just in the schools.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I believe we signed a contract. So they'll help with the like the school buses. They'll clean the athletic equipment, cleaning athletic areas as well. Even to the point when we were having conversations with them to where they'll go in and clean like the toys and stuff that the kids are using in pre-K.
Can I ask a question real quick, or are we going to save them all for the end?
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
So face shields or face masks for all students and all staff. Is that an option for the staff? Can they just choose which one they want? And is that an option for the students? Can the parents choose which one?
You know, we had a lot of discussion about that, Mr. Scardamai, in certain people have, for example, medical conditions that a face shield is more conducive for them than a face mask. For example, someone that has asthma. So we felt like there needed to be some discretion in there to take into account age, to take into account any medical conditions, as well as the teaching situation. There may be times where a teacher's face needs to be seen for instruction. For our ELLs, our English language learner students, and our students learning phonics and things like that. So we felt like that discretion needed to be there. The CDC recommends either one of those.
But the expectation from the governor's order is 10 and up.
Yes.
The school buildings will wear the face covering, not the shields. And again, we'll have some flexibility there if you have medical concerns. But no, that's what we put that in. We put the face shields in there as an option for those who, again, you're talking about instructional purposes for somebody who's in pre-K. There's a time where a kid is actually going to need to visibly see the teacher pronouncing words or letters. I understand that part, but just as a general practice, the mask is what we're expecting.
Okay.
So can I jump in real quick while we're on the
Yeah.
face? So the blueprint says all students. So you just said the governor requires 10 and up. So are we going beyond that and going to require all students? Because you keep referencing TEA guidance, and TEA actually does not recommend all students. So I'm just wondering where that came from.
That they didn't recommend all students?
No, it just says that the schools are required to comply with the governor's executive order regarding the wearing of masks. And it says they may require all students, but it does not recommend requiring all students.
Right.
And that governor's order expires in 2 weeks, unless he renews it, then we may not even have a mask order at all.
Well, I'm just curious why we picked all students when that's not what the governor is requesting or requiring.
Well, I mean, I think it's as a superintendent who's responsible for keeping all kids safe, I think that that's the best practice, unless it's developmentally inappropriate for a kid at their age. And I would see possibly the kids in pre-K, then that may be a concern. But as me, again, as somebody who's going to make recommendations to the board that I believe based on information I have, that's going to keep faculty and students in the safest position. These are the recommendations that I'm putting forth. And
sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, information you have regarding like the science behind kids wearing masks and what?
Well, people wearing masks.
I know, but we're talking about little kids. I mean, that's what I'm just talking about pre-K through whatever grade, a 10-year-old, third grade or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious why we just chose to do that, even though nobody, the WHO, the CDC, nobody is actually requesting that or, suggesting that.
They're not suggesting what? That face coverings?
Children under the age of 10 should wear face coverings.
Okay, I'm not sure where now if we're talking about what the governor ordered, that's one thing. I'll go back and double check what CDC says about face covering. And again, I based on the information I've read, it says that where it's developmentally appropriate and it's not going to harm.
I mean, I guess, are we considering, the bad side effects, I guess, of these kids wearing face masks too, as well? I mean, that's, because there is science that backs that as well. I don't feel comfortable with the little kids wearing face masks, but that's my personal opinion. And that's also, the WHO and the CDC actually, if you go back and read some of the literature on that, it doesn't mandate that or require that.
Well, I mean, as always, what I would say to this entire board is that as your superintendent, I'm going to make a recommendation based on keeping kids and employees as safe as possible. And if the board disagrees with that, by all means, that's within your authority. And you all can provide the administration with different guidance.
No, I mean, I definitely think that we should encourage whoever wants to wear face masks. I think it kind of overreaches our, us requiring beyond what the governor's requiring. I don't feel comfortable doing that, but encouraging them for sure. I mean, but requiring, I don't know.
I'll agree with everything Trent's saying, and I'll just add, I don't know of a single case where a child has passed from COVID. I mean, there isn't any science to say that kids need to wear the masks. Now, having a little bit of discretion in the sense that if they have somebody at home who is elderly or immune compromised, then certainly those kids probably won't be in class at all anyways, because everybody's touching everything before they even get to school and all that. And so, the kids aren't going to keep the masks on, and there isn't any science to say that it's going to do any good for the kids anyways.
So the CDC's latest guideline, I mean, you can see it for yourself from the 16th, says the the cloth face coverings, and you can read it for yourself, should not be worn by kids under the age of 2 or someone who has trouble breathing.
Yeah,
But
well,
in the-
the CDC also says that their recommendations do not supersede the states as well, so.
He knows I agree with him. Superintendent. I'm not the superintendent of the school. I'm allergic. These guys don't know nothing about it.
Nelson, your microphone is on, sir.
No, let them go. We want to hear that.
Can I say something? Can I say something? Do y'all mind?
Sure.
So yeah, this is definitely to me a topic that there, half a dozen this way, half a dozen that way. But the other thing that we as a district have to try to do is also protect the staff that we need there to teach the students. And I think in part of that discussion, when we were discussing with the task force, that was the part of the topic was, what can we also do to ensure that some of our staff maybe are lessening exposure to them who are more susceptible to the coronavirus and having some negative aspects. And I think it was just us thinking that by saying the students, when at all possible, when at all reasonable, have a face mask on, it'll let the interaction between them and their teachers be a little safer situation for them. I mean, that would be the only thing that I would say, because there are definitely conflicting views medically on that. But I think when we're looking at trying to protect two groups, that might help staff feel more comfortable.
Yeah, and and I agree. I want the staff to feel comfortable too, but like James said, I've looked and I haven't found any cases where it's scientifically proven that children are passing COVID-19 to adults. So I mean, I feel comfortable following science and not, I guess just on a whim, and also want to try to follow the governor's recommendations or mandates. So it's, I've also heard stories of schools that are already school hasn't even started, and these schools are getting sued because they're requiring all kids to wear masks when it's, and the governor's not mandating it. So I'm thinking about it from that standpoint as well.
Well, what Trustee Tennant, one thing that I can tell you is that as long as your decision here as a school board, because you're the governing body of this district, as long as it doesn't conflict with what the governor actually says, you can do whatever you want to do.
No, I don't want to conflict it. I want to follow it.
No. What I'm saying is, as long as you meet the minimum standards,
right?
As long as you meet the standards of the governor's order, there's nothing that forbids you as a governing body from adding additional safety precautions in place.
Right. No, I agree with that too. I don't want to overreach and, create an issue that doesn't have to be there as well. Like I said, I would definitely encourage all students, if you want to wear a mask or their family wants them to wear a mask, encourage. I agree with that, but I just don't feel comfortable mandating that all students wear masks. Under 10, of course. That's just my 2 cents on that.
Well, whatever decision is made, or whatever recommendations are put forward, that would be at the responsibility of the board. Once again, as your superintendent, it's my job to bring you the best recommendation I possibly can. The best recommendations I believe that are going to be beneficial to our students, our teachers, and our community. As a matter of fact, all of our employees. And if the board sees differently, then the administration will follow the board's guidance.
Okay.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Do you think someone would feel more safe if the other people were wearing a mask or were not wearing a mask?
I think if I had to ask myself that question, then I would stay at home and my kids would be at home. I'm not sure what you mean.
What I mean is if you're having school and there are some people that aren't wearing masks, what about the other ones that are wearing masks? Are they going to feel comfortable with the ones that aren't wearing the mask? That's my point I'm trying to make.
So that if they're wearing a mask, they're okay, right? So the ones that don't feel safe, they wear the masks and they'll feel okay. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I agree.
Well, I mean, too, it's not, I mean, yeah, of course we want everybody to feel comfortable, but, you know, I'm just going to always go back to, you know, the governor's mandate and then us as a school district overreaching that. I mean, I'm just not comfortable with that.
Hey, Trent, and you're speaking of like 10 years of age and younger, correct?
Right. The governor's mandate is anybody under the age of 10 is not required to wear a mask. And I'm not sure the school district should overreach that and require kids under 10 to wear a mask if the governor is not mandating that. And TEA actually says that, you know, to go by the governor's mandate, basically. Or required to comply with the governor's mandate, I guess. Yeah, any student 10 and over, of course, they're going to wear a mask. I mean, that's mandated.
Right, because it's where 6 feet cannot be maintained, and you obviously can't maintain 6 feet inside a classroom or in a school.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah, obviously it would be appropriate there.
Right, but again, you know, like I said, we'll encourage all students, no matter what age, to wear a mask. But I just don't feel comfortable mandating that.
It's the recommend versus require conversation, you know.
Right.
Yeah, and I guess back to Bob's point is where he was saying, you know, maybe the younger kids under the age of 10 who are in the classroom that are not wearing a mask, does it make the teacher feel maybe less safe? I guess that's kind of what he's saying. So
right, but the teachers will have masks on, so
sure.
Right.
Guys, I apologize for coming in late. I had my times mixed up. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
We can hear you, Jerry.
So I would like to interject a comment in the discussion. I see definitely both sides of the coin on masks, but one of the things logistically as a campus principal I want us to consider is that you have students turning 10 sometimes in the middle of a grade level also. So I would almost encourage us to make decisions by grade levels, because certainly I think you're 9, 10, and about 3rd grade. And I don't know the difference between a 9-year-old who's 9 years old and 11 months versus all of a sudden you just turned 10 in the middle of the year and now you have to wear a mask. Does that make sense? That's logistically difficult for us to manage. I just wanted to put that out there. And the other thing I do want us to consider is that if some of our younger students are riding buses or carpooling or things like that with other students, they'll be in contact with those other students as well. So I just want to, you know, I see both sides of the coin, absolutely.
Yeah, and I understand it's going to be difficult to, you know, like a better word, police the mask stuff. But again, you know, the governor, I'm going to go back to that every time, you know, he's not mandating that. So I do agree it will be difficult. I mean, nothing about this school year is going to be easy. I understand that 100%. But again, like I said, I don't feel comfortable overreaching what the governor's mandating.
Sure.
That's, you know, and I just keep repeating myself, but
yeah, I understand. And certainly I just wanted to put out there that I've seen some districts comply with that by saying grade 3 and up, rather than maybe, you know, 10-year-old and up, whatever that age group is, they've just lumped that group together as where the 9 and 10-year-olds are.
So one more point to this, because I just want to be very clear that if you add kids who are under 10 years old, you're not violating the governor's order. You just, as a local governing body, you've added something else to the order. So you're not violating it.
Yeah. Right. I know we're not going to be violating it, but I definitely think we're overreaching it. I mean, I have to assume there's a reason why that mandate is in there the way it is.
Well, I mean, it's back to the fact that kids they're not getting it, and when they get it, it's mild, and they're not passing away from it. It's more about protecting everybody else than it is about the kids. The kids just, I mean, I don't know of any cases where a child's passed away from it at all, and I'll have to go back and look again. But the last time I looked, there was 0.
Right.
But you know, to Bob's point and everybody else's point, our teachers need to feel safe, and so they need to use every precaution that they can. The ones that are worried about it or have somebody at home or themselves maybe don't need to contract it. And then the people at the kids' homes. So if you know, a kid has a single parent and then they're not feeling well, or if they're raised by grandparents, obviously those families need some extra precautions. But I'll say again, if that was my kid and I had an elderly person at home, I would choose the virtual option if that were a choice. And so I think it all comes down to choice here, and putting that decision into the parents' hands and not forcing the decision on a child, but allowing the parents to have the freedoms.
Right. Or the parent could send them to school with a mask. I mean, if that's their choice.
Good. Absolutely. They're going to make them take it off, by no means.
Right. Agreed.
Should we move on? Is this open for, has there been a decision or?
Well, I think the board needs to give the administration some guidance, or do we put a pin in this concern about the mask and then the board votes on it as a part of approving the plan?
Hey, if I may, I have a little bit of input on that. I've been kind of catching up, running a little late, apologize. But my thought process on the mask for the young ones, 10 and below, I don't see it if we require a mask, that it will be overreaching. I kind of see kind of the opposite of that, almost to the fact of if I use an illustration on the highways, if the speed limit is 70, that's saying that's the maximum speed that you're allowed to travel. If you don't feel safe traveling at 70, you're definitely not overreaching or manipulating the law by going 65, right? So that's kind of my thought process on that part. And then the other part is we want people to feel safe coming to the schools. And that includes the staff, that includes the teachers. And even though young children, and you're right on that, Scott, young children are passing away from it. But if a young child gets it and passes it along to an adult, to a teacher, to a parent, to a grandparent, then it's a dangerous disease, even if not for that child. Yeah. So the goal is to keep everybody protected the best we can. And I would definitely want to err on the side of caution versus, we worried about taking away somebody's rights or some stuff like that. Right. And yeah, so my that's my kind of my thought process on that. And it goes along with a lot of things that we do. We're wearing seatbelts. We're required to wear clothes. We'll give issued a government identification number, for God's sake, to wear a mask during the time of a disease that we don't know much about. As a world, we're trying to learn about it. I definitely would rather err on the side of caution and require face masks.
Yeah, and I'll go back to what James said earlier. I mean, as far as we know, there's been 0 cases where a child has infected an adult. And also, I mean, when you talk about seatbelts versus wear a mask, I mean, they started studying the effects of seatbelts in like the 1940s. There's a lot of science behind wearing seatbelts. There's absolutely 0 science as far as why children under 10 should wear a mask. 0 data to back that up.
We do know a lot about the virus. It's related to the common cold. It's just a little bit more serious and causes some detrimental effects. Excuse me. it causes some detrimental effects. I worry about the fact that if we say everybody's wearing a face mask, it's safe, come on. And then Jerry, to your point, one of them kids takes it home and puts it in the house, and somebody affects it and dies and says, well, my kid got it from the school, but it was safe because everybody needed to wear masks. I think we need to just be a little bit more upfront and say, hey, this is the parent's choice. If you're coming to school, and you're 10 and older, we're going to say you need to wear a face mask because that's what the governor says. You're under 10, it's optional. We encourage and we definitely recommend that you wear a face mask. It's not required. But if you're in a household that you do not need to contract this, then we want you to be safe. Go ahead and stay home. We have our virtual option for you. It is the choice of the parent to raise their own child and to send their kid to the school or not. But I don't think requiring everybody to wear face masks, that puts up a false sense of security. It's like you're not going to catch it at school now because everybody has a face mask or a face shield, when in reality, everybody touches everything and they bring stuff with them all the time. And I'll tell you, the first time that a teacher or an administrator or a staff member or a student pulls that mask down and wears it right over their lip, they're not following the guidance. That just opens it up for who spread what and whose fault is it. And I just don't think we need to put that false sense of security out there. If you can't catch it, you don't want to catch it, or you're afraid of it, or you just don't need to be in that position, then we have a virtual option. But if you choose to send your child to school and our kids will be coming to school, then certainly we'll follow the guidance.
James, the trustee Scottermeyer, the other point to that is our teachers don't have that option. Okay. Our teachers don't have an option whether or not they go to work. So we, again, not just responsible for 3,800 kids. I'm responsible for 260 teachers as well. So, with saying that, absolutely, we want to keep kids safe, but we're also responsible for the adults here too. And based on some of the feedback that we've gotten, teachers have concerns. And if we take that approach and not really listen to some of the feedback that they've given us, I mean, what are we actually saying? How much we actually value the voice of the people who are going to be in classrooms with 15 to 16 to 17 kids daily. I think the teachers have a valid point as well. And once again, as we talk about it being developmentally appropriate, I cannot see a kid in pre-K having a mask on all day. That's an impossibility. They're 4, they're 5, kindergartens. That's not going to happen. But as a district, again, as the administration, this is my recommendation as far as keeping all people as safe as we possibly can. And there are a lot of unknowns around this coronavirus, but I don't believe that us being more cautious than what the governor states or what TEA states is wrong, and which is why I put forth the recommendation.
Yeah, and I agree with that too. Like I said, I want teachers to feel comfortable. And I don't, honestly, any decisions we make from this point on, as far as the coronavirus is concerned, there's no right or wrong decision. It's just, you know what I mean? And so I just want to make sure that I'm making decisions based on science or following mandates that we've been given. And as far as science is concerned, like I said, there's no science that backs having these little kids wear masks.
I think we should have it. I can tell you that I'm an old guy now and I don't have little kids, but if I did have little kids going to school, they would be wearing that mask.
And that would be absolutely your choice. Like it'll be everybody else's choice. And we'll encourage that. But to put a mandate in there for us to say all kids, I just don't think we should.
And, to the point of that there hasn't been a child that's died from the COVID-19, that may be true, but, Matagorda County had the first COVID death in the state of Texas. And I would hate for BCISD to be the first school district in the state of Texas that had a COVID death from a child.
No, I never said that no child has died from COVID. I said there's no evidence to show that a child has ever given the COVID-19 to an adult.
Okay, so if the child could give the COVID to an adult, if they had COVID, wouldn't it be better for them to be wearing a mask and not spreading those germs than to not be wearing the mask?
No, I'm saying that there's no evidence to show that that has ever happened, that a child has ever transferred the COVID-19 to an adult. There's no science that shows that that's happened. And, as far as germs goes, the first time the kid touches the mask with their hands, any useful thing that mask is going to do has been, it's non-existent anymore.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'll go on record to say that I think we should require it.
Okay.
Oh, I do just want to go on record to say that I think all districts are struggling with it. And we've seen some districts that are following the governor's mandate to the T. And then we've seen some districts like Pearland ISD who are recommending masks for all grade levels as much as possible and as developmentally appropriate, PK through 12. So I don't want board members to feel like we're overstepping our bounds as school boards either way we go, but there are other districts who have required it PK through 12.
And I definitely want to go on record to say I recommend that all students wear face covering as well.
And me too. Me being sick at home, well, not being sick, my health being challenged, I would want them to wear face masks for their safety and mine. And not for false assurance that, they can't get or give it. It's just to be safe. And we're at a point right now, we don't know. So everything we're doing is trial and error.
Well, it was like I said, I'm not going to stop any student from wearing a mask. I mean, of course, I not even just not stop them. I'll encourage students to wear masks. I'm just uncomfortable with saying they must wear masks. That's it.
I just want to say that we live in the greatest country that God has ever graced this earth with. And I appreciate the fact that we can have this conversation with each other in a respectful manner and share our opinions with each other. So thank you all for your input, whether you're on the face mask, face shield side or not. I'll go along with whatever the board decides as a majority because that's the law. I do believe in a parent's choice. I have small children. I don't fear for them. They're not going to catch it. If they do, they'll be asymptomatic. There's no way they're going to give it to me. They would probably catch it from me before I caught it from them. But, I won't make a decision for another parent's child when I feel it's of this magnitude. I would allow that parent to make that decision for their own child. And I would ask every parent who was sick or didn't want their child around that to keep their child at home. And every parent who wanted their child to be in class and follow the governor's mandate, as Trent said, to go ahead and attend school.
So go ahead. Well, I was just going to say a quick question for the board.
Sure.
A scenario: I'm a first grade teacher. I have underlying health conditions, and I want the students in my classroom to wear masks. Then what's the response there from the school district? Because this is a real scenario.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, I'd have to say, have a conversation with that teacher and just say that, the governor sets the mandates. And so it's,
yeah. I mean, I would have,
and she's more than welcome to wear a mask as well.
Yeah.
She'll have to, actually.
So if any of her students are at home and somebody at home has coronavirus and they're just not telling people, and they touch all the same stuff that their parents touched, and then they come to school and they're scanned and they don't have a temperature, and they go in that classroom and they touch all the pencils in the teacher's desk. I mean, they brought that to the class, and that face mask has done nothing but give that teacher a false sense of security. And so now she is obviously, or he is obviously somebody who shouldn't catch it, but is going to be exposed to it, whether the entire class is wearing masks or not. I just don't like the false sense of security that the masks provide, because they're not the end all be all. It is not everybody wear a mask and this thing goes away. It is slowing it, because you can't cough on somebody. I get that. If she wears her own face shield and face mask, together in combination, and gloves, then I don't see how she's going to catch it to begin with. So her safety is the most important thing there in that situation. But the students in her class who aren't going to wear the mask are going to pull the mask down. Essentially, I don't see how it's any different from her teaching with a class full of kids who don't have masks, or a class full of kids who do have masks. She's going to be exposed to it. I don't know. I mean, I like the question. It makes all of us think.
So let's not fall in the area of naivety to think that we are advocating that the mask is a solve all. What we're saying, the mask is there along with other tools that we use to prevent the spread. I.e., as I was looking over the document, that we're going to educate the children on proper hand washing. We're gonna have the cleaning staff clean rooms and bomb rooms and do all this stuff. We're doing a lot of stuff besides the mask, and let's not get caught up on that. The district is implying, or may it be parents implying, that we think a mask is a solve all. So with that being said, I work in a heavily populated area, and I haven't been off for coronavirus since it struck, and we've been working, and we wear the mask. There's nobody under 10 where I work at, but we do the sanitation, we do the cleaning, we do the mask. Every day we're talking about it. We're trying to educate each other on it. That mask is just another tool in the toolbox of prevention. And I understand what we are saying. We want to follow the governor's orders, and we don't want to overstep what the governor has to say. But we must understand you're not overstepping the governor. You're saying, I hear you, man, and I'm going to be even extra safe. And there's nothing wrong with that. As far as us saying, well, if the kids don't, or the parents don't want to have the kids that, we just, we have options, they can stay at home. I want us to think back when they were shooting these schools. We didn't have that option. What did we do? We held classes to teach children how to react pretty much in the war zone, to teach teachers how to react in a war zone. We had discussions on whether or not we're going to arm teachers.
Yeah,
in other words, we went above and beyond. We should go above and beyond here, and that's my personal opinion. If something happens, I want it to be said that we did the very best that we can to protect every human being that works or that's in attendance on our district campuses.
Can I just say something real quick? I think we're spending a lot of time on this. I think we know where it's going with this. I think there's a majority of the board wants to go ahead and go with the mask. So I think we should just go ahead and move on. We're just going to go ahead and that's just what I'm saying for time's sake. And I think we've hit the subject hard enough.
So I'm just going to also say that my last point, when we do overreach the governor, I mean, you're also opening ourselves up for lawsuits. And I mean, no one's about, the districts around us that aren't going to require it. Another option other than virtual learning will be for those kids to transfer to other schools as well. But I think if this is something that the board is kind of split on, I definitely think that there should be a vote. I mean, if that's what it comes to. That way I can at least have my voice on record saying that I didn't agree with it.
And with that being said, we have lawyers. We have lawyers to help us with that legal stuff, Trent. That's number one. And number two, we've all went on record to say how we feel pretty much. Now, I just want to give some advice to the board. Whatever we come up with, that's not for the basically the ISD school board to be out. I'm not saying anybody's going to do it, but I just want to get it out there. However it goes, it's not for us as a school board to be in the community saying, well, it went this way. I really thought this. I went this way. We have to stay unified as a board. We got to remember that. We taught that in training.
Well,
That's
yeah,
kinda put that there.
yeah, I remember training. I mean, you don't have to tell me how to act in the community. I'm part of this board, and I'm well aware of that.
Big 10-4. I just want to make us clear. I wasn't singling you out. I just want to make clear on that. Whichever way it goes, that's how we're going to rock.
I don't know how it happens or how we have a vote on this, but that's what I recommend.
So we'll come back and we'll have to schedule an emergency meeting for the board to approve this plan and the concerns that may come up in the plan. If there's some additional concerns that come up in the plan before we solidify it and send it out to the community, I think that it is a good. I think it's a good practice for the board to actually vote on these ideas. We're discussing it here. Wanted to bring it to a workshop to you all because I kind of anticipated some differing of opinions coming up with some of the things that we're going to put in place. But we absolutely should have a board emergency meeting, so therefore you all can vote on some of these practices that we'll put in place. It's absolutely your responsibility as a governing body.
One quick question, and then we can move on, because I agree with John. I think we've discussed this thoroughly. I think we've got all the points. We sent a survey out, and over 70% of the parents think that we should be having class in person. Did we send a survey out to the parents to see what their choice was as far as requiring face masks? Do we know how the majority of the parents feel? Was that not even a question to be asked at that time?
Say it one more time.
So we sent a survey out and we asked parents, would you rather have virtual or in class? And over 70% said I'd rather have my student in school in person.
Yes.
Do we gauge the parents as to how they felt about this issue, as far as, am I going to require my 6-year-old or 10-year-old or 15-year-old to wear a mask? Or was that not even an issue at the time when we sent that survey?
Well,
I know that's way back.
Well, as one of the strategies to keep kids safe, no, we haven't sent any of those out. But if that's a board recommendation, I guess if there's something else that comes up and the board is not 100% going in the same direction with that, if it's another strategy that we have on here that you all disagree on, we can, if you're directing me to send that out to the parents to survey them, then by all means, we'll do it as the administration.
I'd love to hear what the parents say, because if 70% of the parents told me, nope, I need everybody in that class to have a mask, I would just be like, okay. I mean, I serve at the pleasure of the people who voted for me, and I'd love to know what they think on this issue. So if I can, just go ahead and say, please do that.
I agree.
I can agree with that as well. And when we do send that survey out, I'd like for us to remember Ms. Moyer's recommendation. Instead of saying 10-year-old, let's put a grade level on it. Like that, we don't find ourselves back in a long, drawn-out conversation, because that's going to happen if we don't.
Jerry, I agree.
Above 10, you don't even have a choice.
Right.
No, sir. What I'm saying is, if we say the age of 10, and then, like you say, if a child turns 10 in the middle of the school year, right? Today you got a mask on. I mean, you ain't got a mask, but tomorrow now you're required. And just to save all that, we say 3rd grade and up.
Right? Yeah, it would have to be 3rd grade up.
So, man, can we poll just parents of PK, kinder, 1st and 2nd? Would that be appropriate?
But no, I think I would poll all parents, because above 10, I think you do still have a choice. I mean, the mandate says where 6 feet cannot be achieved, whether it's indoors or outdoors. I mean, the way it's written. So we would have to do a lot to make sure that kids were 6 feet away from each other. And I don't know how you do that, or if that's even possible.
I mean, logistically, you can't. If you put 12 kids in one of the larger classrooms, it's going to be an impossibility to keep them 6 feet apart. If you're going to provide appropriate instruction for kids, there's no way that they're going to be able to be 6 feet apart.
Yeah.
There's no way.
But then you're back to wearing a mask while you enter the class. And then once you're 6 feet apart from each other, you can pull it down. You better put it back up as you go to lunch or go to recess, and those may be more appropriate solutions.
Yeah. So, I mean, as we continue to go through this, I mean, hopefully you all will realize that it's almost an impossibility to stick to the CDC's recommendations and offer an adequate and appropriate education for kids in a regular sized classroom. It's just, there's no social distancing while you're actually trying to learn. This goes absolutely opposite of everything with 21st century learning, from collaborating and communicating and working together on things. Just, but our teachers and employees are going to do the best that we possibly can to provide the best education for our kids. But once again, our teachers are in a tough spot. I know that you all are in tough spots as trustees as these topics come up. And, you know, to Trent's point, whatever decision we make, you're gonna have a section of the community who's just not happy with the decisions that's being made.
So may I interject? Should we survey those younger grade teachers as well? Do you want that information as well, board members, or just parent information?
I think teachers as well.
Yeah, I don't think more information hurts anything. I
Yeah.
think in the survey you have some way to identify a parent who is a first grade parent or a parent who's a high school parent or both, and so that way you can collectively have that information separate from each other. And same with teachers. What grade do they teach? What grade are they exposed to? And ask them. Yeah, no, I mean, more information is better at this point.
I agree.
Okay, I sense, are we moving on from this discussion? We're agreeing we're going to do a survey and have a board meeting to discuss those results. Okay.
I think you can proceed, Ms. Moya.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit now about the campus and classroom modifications to the 100% in-person model. Of course, principals are already working with their team to figure out how we can social distance students as much as possible. Of course, some of that social distancing is going to naturally happen because when we find out how many students commit to virtual learning, our class sizes will be smaller. Right now, we don't have that number, but we hope to have that very soon as this plan is approved, and we can put that out to parents and let them start making those commitments. We'll minimize student transitions. That looks a little bit different on every campus. On some campuses, we're considering different options. Some classes will now become self-contained where the teachers teach all subjects, or it may be a situation where teachers rotate rather than students transitioning through the hallways. Secondary principals are looking at different traffic patterns that they can utilize, and even adding time to the passing period so that maybe they can do staggered transitions in the hallways. They're also looking at multiple entry points for arrival so that we don't have mass crowds of students coming through one entrance. The same thing with dismissal procedures. They're looking at very different options that we can use different dismissal points and even staggered dismissals using the QR codes in the classroom rather than having them congregate in the gym or the cafeteria or outside while they're waiting for the rides. We will be probably serving meals either in classrooms or at the secondary. We may be using additional spaces for social distancing. Principals are already getting plans for that. I know they've talked with Mr. Kraus about cafeteria tables so that we can spread students out more. We will recommend that we limit campus visitors and visitors only come for essential visits that can't be conducted virtually or by phone. And those visitors will be screened, of course, just like anyone else that comes to campus. And of course, we're going to encourage parents to transport their students so that we can socially distance on the bus as much as possible. I'll be honest, that's very difficult when you have a limited number of buses, and a limited number of bus drivers is probably our biggest issue. So we're going to really encourage parents to transport their students as much as possible. Of course, then we'll have some students start choosing virtual, and they won't need the bus service. So. The other thing I'm very proud that our district has decided to do is that we've decided to create a position of a COVID coordinator. This is going to be a nurse in our district who is very well versed in COVID-19 protocols from the CDC, Texas Department of Health, and the TEA public health guidelines. This person will work with all the campuses to coordinate responses to any lab confirmed cases or suspected cases, both the students and the staff, helping to make our procedures on every campus and every department implemented with fidelity so that we're always following those same procedures to respond. They're going to coordinate response efforts and coordinate with community health agencies, whether that be our local hospital or MEHOP or the state health department. They will also conduct the tracing process, the contact tracing process. There's very specific guidelines that TEA has given us that we will follow, and that person will follow that contact tracing process, contacting parents and making those appropriate communications to anybody that might be involved in that. They'll also monitor isolation times. For example, he has guidelines as far as how long somebody should be home in isolation. They'll help monitor that, check on that person, pretty much basically what the contact tracing nurse does in our county with any community case. And they'll also coordinate with the chief of HR and the campus principals to make sure we're doing the return to school and return to work clearances and making sure we're good on that end.
So right here, I want to thank the board for allowing us to create this position so that we can have one medical professional on our staff to coordinate this. I mean, this is it's a huge job. It's a huge task, but I think if we have one point person between ourselves and the other medical providers in the area and with the state, I think it'll help us better manage whatever may come up around the COVID-19 in our schools and across our district. So thank you all for this position.
So let's talk about what the instructional models will look like. The 100% in-person model, you adopted a strategic goal back in the spring that we will integrate the most up-to-date technology district-wide to enhance student development, growth, and learning. I'm very, very proud to say that as of August, every student in Bay City K through 12 will have their own Chromebook, and we will have a one-to-one full implemented initiative. Also, every teacher will have a document camera capable of live streaming lessons via Zoom. Every teacher will have a teacher Chromebook in case they need to work remotely. We will be implementing a blended instructional model, which we started in the spring, but we were, as you know, pivoting very quickly to that. But what we learned in the spring, now we're ready to carry out full force with all students using Google Classroom daily. In our classrooms, if teachers are using Google Classroom and using this as a blended model, we will ensure all students are familiar with that virtual platform. So that way there'll be a seamless transition between those students who are on virtual school or those students who are receiving in-person instruction. And if students need to go back and forth between the two models, that transition should be much less disruptive. They should slip right into the in-person model because basically students will be doing the same work on Google Classroom. This will also make our ability to pivot to an all virtual setting, either by campus or district-wide if necessary, if we had to. So the biggest questions come about our 100% virtual model. Of course, this is going to be much more rigorous than the instructional support that we provided during the spring 2020 COVID closures. TEA mandates that there are daily attendance and engagement requirements, and there are guidelines that we must follow, and that's important for parents to realize. This isn't what we did back in the spring. We must address 100% of the TEKs. So that's why as our team was developing this, we felt like what better way for us to address the attendance and engagement issue and all of the TEKs than set up our classrooms so that virtual students are actually seeing the lesson live and they're getting the same Google Classroom assignments that our in-person students are getting. All of our grade levels will have a synchronous component. That means two-way, real-time, live interaction with the teacher and class via Zoom. That's exactly what we're doing right now. We're interacting with each other. If I were the teacher, you're seeing my PowerPoint, you're hearing my voice. We can have a discussion. You can ask questions in real time. All grade levels will also have an asynchronous component. That means that it doesn't require live interaction, but requires daily work and teacher feedback. That's the part of the Google Classroom assignments that the teacher assigns. So all students will be required to log in daily to live stream of an in-person instruction via Zoom. They'll be required to complete daily activities or lessons assigned by the teachers. And those, of course, we've said are the same lessons assigned to the in-person students. The grading will be the same as the in-person model. The campuses are working on schedules and planning right now. And one of the things that the TEA guidelines tell us is that we can ask parents to commit for at least 6 weeks, because that transition between in-person or virtual, if you try to do that in the middle of the semester, that could be a little rocky. So we're asking parents to commit to at least 6 weeks before, if it's not working out, then they can request from their principal that they transition back to the in-person model or vice versa. Of course, we'll have some exceptions to the rule. If a student becomes sick or becomes lab confirmed, they would need to transition to the virtual immediately for isolation. Now, our credit recovery and our dual credit students, they'll continue to follow an asynchronous model that's already set up in their current programs.
So one thing about this virtual model, and for our parents who are actually on, and for board members as well, is to Lisa's point, this is not what we did in the spring. In the springtime, we provided remote support for instruction. This model is actually going to be instructional delivery. The expectations, once again, will be that you perform, that you're engaged, that you participate, just like you were sitting in the classroom in person to person. We may need to revisit this and present this instructional model to our parents, Lisa, a little deeper, so they'll have an understanding. This
Sure.
isn't you just sit at home and you get on the virtual model whenever you feel like it, and when you don't, then you just turn it off and you go somewhere else, or you log in and then you just have the login on and you go play PlayStation for the next 2 or 3 hours. That's not what this is. It's engaged learning. It's going to be participatory to where kids are actually going to have to interact, give feedback, and they will be assessed and graded in the exact same way. So I don't want any of us to believe that this virtual model is going to be less rigorous or it's going to be less challenging than the face-to-face.
So this kind of outlines for you grade level spans and what that will look like a little more specifically. Of course, it's going to look a little bit different for grades 6 through 12 than it is PK through K. Realistically, kindergartners and 4-year-olds cannot sit in front of the computer all day logged in to watch their class. So teachers will be working with their principal, Jana White. She's already started meeting with her instructional leadership team, and they're looking at several key activities throughout the day that would be beneficial for the virtual students to participate in, such as, for example, circle time or the read aloud time. And that will be a set time every day that those students will log in and participate in that activity. Then the asynchronous part for those students will, of course, be Google Classroom assignments, but also we have a wealth of online learning programs that the teachers utilize, such as our Lexia reading program, our ST math program, where students can log on, progress can be monitored, the teacher can give them feedback daily. So that'll be part of the pre-K and kinder program. Now the TEA, this is important also for parents to understand that this is a huge commitment because our TEA time guidelines are a minimum of 180 minutes per day. That can be a combination of synchronously logging in and then engagement in online learning programs or Google Classroom. But if you think about a 4 and 5-year-old, 180 minutes per day working periodically throughout the day is a big commitment. For grade 1 through 5, the synchronous required Zoom schedule that students will follow, they will log in live to their core classes, language arts, math, science, and social studies. They'll receive that same instruction that every other student is receiving. And then their specials classes such as music, technology, art, anything like that will be asynchronous. There will be assignments posted on Google Classroom. And again, their TEA requirement is a minimum of 180 minutes per day. I can tell you with our design, our model design, with our students grade 1 through 5, logging into language arts, math, science, and social studies, we will exceed 180 minutes per day, which is good for our students. Grade 6 through 12, they will actually follow their same course schedule, all 8 periods. They will log in synchronously to all of their core classes, but all of their elective classes also. So they are the grade band that has probably the most synchronous instruction in their plan. If I have a daughter who's going to be a freshman, if she has math first period, she logs into math from 8 to 8:45. She has a 5-minute break while they have passing period, then she logs into her second period class and then her third period class throughout the whole day. And again, that TEA outlines a minimum of 240 minutes per day, but the way our model is set up, because we believe so much in that interaction and that synchronous learning, our students will exceed that minimum requirement for attendance. And the teachers will actually take attendance the same way they do for their in-person students. They will just see who's logged on, who's interacting, and they will take attendance for each class period. Any questions about those things? So our next step, we wanted to discuss with you, as you probably have heard, the governor did announce that, and TEA announced that schools could look at a 3-week all virtual start at the beginning of the year. And
Actually, Lisa, it's 4 weeks now.
oh, it's 4 weeks. I'm sorry. That's how quickly things change. So you're right. I'm sorry. 4 weeks. We polled our teachers when this information came out. Of course, at the time it came out, it was 3 weeks, and now it has changed to 4 weeks.
You're right.
At that time, 65% of our teachers were in favor of that all virtual start. 10% had no opinion, and 25% were not in favor of it. What it would do for us, the pros that we see to that, is that it would provide additional time to have all of our safety measures in place and all of our equipment. It would provide opportunity for teachers to live stream only and get more comfortable with the new document cameras during that time, since they wouldn't be managing in-person and live streaming at the same time. It would provide possible platform for staggered return to in-person model. We've discussed ideas about that. You know, last spring, all of our transition grade levels, when they move campuses, we usually take them to the new campus. We teach them the procedures, and we didn't get to do that last spring. So when you're looking at our pre-Kers, our first graders going to Roberts, our third graders going to Holmes, 6th and 9th going to junior high and high school, we thought, wouldn't it perhaps be beneficial that during those 3 weeks, or now 4 weeks, we bring one group back first, and we have a chance to give them that campus tour. We have a chance to teach them those procedures so that they know where they're going, rather than being thrown into the mix with everybody all at once. It would also allow our staff to practice those safety measures with small groups and solidify those processes prior to the larger groups getting there. For example, the temperature checks. It would be great if our staff could practice that model with just one grade level, get it down for a day or two before we add some of the other grade levels in. And there's going to be a lot of lessons learned. Let's face it, the first couple of weeks of in-person when we're implementing these new safety procedures. And it would also possibly allow more time, I'm hopeful, I'm prayerful for our current community COVID cases to possibly decrease.
So let me jump in here, if I may, trustees, to tell everyone on here and everyone listening is that I believe the best place for our students, the best learning opportunity will be in our schools. So I don't want anybody to mistake, me being overly precautious about the mask or kids being in person. I truly believe that the best place, I honestly believe, the safest place outside of the virus piece and just holistically for our kids are in school. But to Lisa's point here, we made this recommendation, Lisa, and I know the governor said 4 weeks. I would still stick to the 3 weeks, looking at the calendar that I saw, because I do want to get kids back into the classroom, but I also want to ensure that we have all the safety measures in place, up and running, and that teachers are comfortable with them as well. The other part of this is the instructional piece. We're asking teachers to do something that we've never asked them to do before. When you talk about provide instruction virtually. So my recommendation to the board, even though the governor says, we have 4 weeks, my recommendation would be to keep it at 3 weeks. Let everybody get comfortable. Let us get our safety measures in place, and then we bring the kids back into the building.
Hey, yes, sir. Hey, let us also be mindful too of how this disease is really affecting minorities in a major way. For some reason, minorities, especially Black people, are a lot more susceptible to this disease. Looking at the demographics of our school, we have a lot of population in there. And I hear people say a lot of times, like, well, I don't really know anybody, and that kind of stuff. And I'm gonna tell you for a fact, being me and how it's affected me, I've had to bury 3 people that were near and dear to me that died from coronavirus. One of my best friends that I have just got out of the hospital this past week from coronavirus. Brother from my church is in the hospital now. My first cousin is in the hospital now. All of these are coronavirus cases in our area. So if I sound overly cautious, that's because I am overly cautious. And we have to think about, as we navigate through this whole process, that this disease affects people not only by age, but it's been shown ethnicity as well. So just keep that in mind as we go about making the decisions that we're making.
Any other discussion? Okay, and so our next steps, I need to add a next step here to survey about masks, and we will get that done this week.
Well, hold on a second, Lisa.
Okay.
Trustees, I would ask you, is the 3 weeks start something that we need to come back and put up for a vote as well, along with the mask? The virtual start.
Dr. Scott, it's just I think it's a compromise. I think it's an in-between. I think if it's for the safety of everybody, I don't have an issue with that.
Okay.
I'm mindful of the parents, who don't, like, to your point, don't have a choice. They have to go back to work.
Right.
My wife being one of those. I now have 2 9-year-olds who can be home all day alone. So I'd just be mindful of that situation. Could we have potentially a very limited in school option? Very limited, only a few students coming in, and only because those kids potentially don't have anybody at home. The other thing is the SPED kids. You can't put a SPED kid in front of a device. I mean, I've watched it. I've been in the schools a lot. I've taken Christmas presents to those classes for those kids. I've gone up there at lunch. I've spent all day up at the school before. You got to get in their face almost, and you got to get their attention. And they learn so well in person. And so those kids are going to suffer more than anybody else. Is there a compromise here? Is there an in-between where maybe we can make everybody happy?
Quite honestly, you can, to Lisa's point, you can have a staggered transition for students. I mean, you can determine what the criteria would be. for staggering in-person instruction. I would even say I say stick with the 3 weeks. If our teachers are up and running, then this is from my perspective. If the teachers are up and running and they're comfortable by the end of, let's just say, the end of the middle of the week and a half, I really truly don't have a concern with us starting to transition kids back in even before the 3 weeks is out. But again, I want the adults to get back into the building. I want the teachers to actually get in, and with all of the hand sanitizer and wipes and all of the other things that we're going to put out there, along with the instructional expectation that they actually have with being prepared to do this virtually as well. Just let them get acclimated to that setting. And again, you kind of cross-reference that with the COVID numbers that we actually have. If those numbers are going down significantly, we should take all of that information into consideration. But first and foremost, I think that we need to bring the adults back into the building and let them get comfortable with all of the new expectations that we actually have. Flip side, James, you're absolutely right. To my point, beyond COVID, school is still the safest place for a whole host of kids who we actually have and who we serve every single day. And I think it's a balancing act of trying to gauge where COVID is, and then having this 9-year-old kid at home, and there are no other options, whether it's food, whether it's security, whether it's protection. Not easy decisions to make. And I said it to the team the other day. I believe that our school buildings, for a large majority of our kids, are the safest place for them to be every single day. So trust me, I want to have kids back in the building for instructional purpose, learning purposes, but there are some wraparound services that we provide in our buildings that our kids need.
I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, I understand the transition period for the teachers. I mean, it's a lot to get used to, and all the new equipment on live streaming and all that. But like you said, the best place is going to be in the school for these kiddos. So I mean, the sooner the better.
Great.
Dr. Scott, do you want me to move on? Do you feel like we?
Well, I was just going to ask Mr. President. So based on just an unofficial word from trustees, we're okay with the 3-week virtual start for our teachers and our employees.
I haven't heard anything negative to the effect. So.
Okay. Yes, sir.
So our final next steps, we had hoped to publish our plan to the community and parents tomorrow. Obviously, we probably need to step that back because we're going to do a survey about the masks, because we really believe that the community needs to see this plan so that they can make an informed decision. Do I feel safe sending my child with these safety precautions in place, or vice versa? Can I make the commitment? Do I feel like the 100% virtual with the attendance requirements and the live streaming and the engagement requirements, do I feel like that's going to best serve our family? So we probably need to push these dates back until we have information on masks, I assume.
So Lisa, I think pushing the date back is probably not going to be best. Okay. If we can almost put a pin in the mask piece, because I want the parents to have the information. Okay. As you're going through, the further out we push this, right, the less data we're going to have, whether or not they're going to come back virtually or person to person. So if we could tentatively send this out to parents and say it's a draft,
okay,
a draft pending board approval, and we can probably make some adjustments around the mask piece, and I mean, kind of highlight that's definitely still going to go to the board for a vote. I think that parents really and truly need to see this. I know we have many who are watching, okay, but if we give this this information out to them as a draft and possibly even get, their input on it for the next next few days. I think that's going to be the best way for us to make the most informed decisions as we move forward. Because if we don't give this to them soon,
Sure.
If I were a parent, I'd start to get a little antsy. We're moving into August.
I understand.
So trustees, can you weigh in on your thoughts about sharing this with parents as a draft pending board approval?
I think if you presented it to me as a draft pending board approval and put something in there about, where the masks, and then we require your feedback, or we value your input here.
Yes.
So now they're reading it, you know what they're reading. They're reading when we're going back. Are we going back? What, are we delaying? Are we wearing masks? Are we doing this? Are we doing that? They're going to read all the details. And when they see, oh, they really want my opinion here, this isn't finalized yet. I think that's an awesome idea.
Okay.
It may have your survey response percent, even be even higher for people who actually fill it out.
Sure.
Okay.
I agree.
So we will also open up a 3-step process for parents where some of our parents have already started to register their students for next year. This is new across our district in that every year now students will need to register through their parent portal if they're coming back to school. So we started that in the spring, but we'll ask any parent, if you are a returning or a new student, whether you're choosing an in-person or 100% virtual model, you need to fill out the 2020 student registration. Then we'll ask parents who are comfortable making that decision. If they're ready to make that decision, they can go ahead and fill out the virtual instruction at home registration. That'll help give us some numbers for planning so that we know a little bit more what those class sizes look like. And then for those students who are choosing the in-person model, we can go ahead and open up bus registrations. So again, that'll give us some information as to what our ridership will look like and how many bus routes we're going to need to run. And then of course, we'll just continue planning campus and district teams. And as you all said tonight, there's going to have to be a lot of flexibility in 2020.
When we roll this out, is there going to be any dates as far as when virtual starts? I mean, I know we talked about making adjustments on rolling, staggering kids actually coming to the campus, but
we're going to keep the same starting date, with, August the 20th. We're not pushing the start date of school back.
Okay. No, I agree with that for sure.
Yeah, school will start the 20th. Our team will have to meet to develop a plan. We've talked about some ideas, but wanted to run it by y'all first. But we can certainly meet and get some ideas about what that might look like for a staggered.
As you know, trying to get pre-K and K into a school building is a whole lot different than trying to get high schoolers in. So once the teams get back on campus, we may make some minor adjustments to this, whether it's the staggered coming back on in person. Pre-K may have a day, then kinder may have a day, just to get them acclimated. We've kind of left that up to the campuses and their leadership teams and their teachers to see what best fits for them and their community, but trying to stay within the scope of the plan that we actually have here.
Absolutely.
Hey, my last question too, I mean, are we going to put, I don't know if we've talked about this or not, but as far as preparing for in a case where we do have to shut the school down, for instance, if it may, I don't know, are we going to put things in place to prepare for that as far as extending the day or anything like that to get extra minutes in?
Yeah, you guys actually gave us 30 extra minutes per day. When was the meeting?
The
other day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'll approve that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's in place, just in case we need to bank some minutes. But also, as I said to the teachers and to the principals, I mean, you'll have 30 minutes additional on each campus per day. You can use that. I mean, at your based on your campus needs. If it's pre-K and you need to have an extended recess because kids were never being taken outside, you can use the 30 minutes for recess. If you want to extend your transition periods between classes because kids have typically been late, you can do that. If you want to give teachers an extra 10 or 15 minutes to plan daily, whatever is going to fit within the scope and the needs of your campus. We're very flexible. I know, some of the teachers on the task force asked, were we just going to use that time for instruction? But the answer to that is no, because I believe every activity that you have in the school, whether it's recess or planning, contributes to instruction. So we ask the principals to go back with their teams by campus and determine how they can best utilize those additional minutes that they get. Really and truly want to thank you all for that as well.
Ms. Moya,
Yes.
do you think you'll have the information from the survey as far as the mask, et cetera, goes by middle of next week?
Yes, sir. We'll do our very best. We'll try to craft that survey and get it out tomorrow.
Okay, well, hopefully we can get a special meeting before the end of next week.
Okay.
Maybe next Thursday.
Okay. Yes, sir. Is there any other discussion? That concludes my presentation, unless there's other discussion or questions.
Well, I just want to thank, first and foremost, thank the task force that we put together for their feedback, their recommendations. Board, I would tell you that we even made some changes to the plan that we actually had up before, because we added a teacher's perspective, a parent's perspective. We even had teachers who were parents who helped us move along to develop this plan where it is. I also want to thank you all as trustees. As I've said to you all before, you are the hardest working volunteers that works anywhere across this country, if you ask me. And the work that you actually do here on behalf of students and teachers is critical, and it's not easy work. But again, I value everybody's perspective, everybody's voice, and hopefully, we'll move forward and do what's in the best interest of our district. Once again, there are no right answers in the midst of this pandemic. We just have to figure out what are the best answers for us here and what are the best solutions for us here as a district, and move forward. Will we make mistakes? The answer is absolutely yes, because I've never been here before. I've never seen COVID before. Never been a superintendent during a pandemic before. But again, I do believe that we'll be better on the other side of this pandemic. Mr. President, that concludes my comments here as a superintendent.
Okay, well, obviously the coronavirus has created an educational nightmare. And I want to thank all of you who have worked so hard in the last months putting this together. And, education right now is a moving target with this coronavirus, and y'all are all to be commended in the great job that you've done up to this point. Hopefully, applause for that. And hopefully, we'll get school going. The coronavirus will deplete somewhat. Maybe we'll get a vaccine and we can get back to normal. That's what we all hope for and pray for. So
one more thing. Yeah, one more thing I want to brag about and congratulate you all as a board as well is we kind of grazed over it like it was normal, but we're a 1-to-1 district now. That means every single student in this district has his or her own device. Not only that, you as a board made it possible for us to have how many hotspots, Lisa, to where every single kid in our district, 600?
Yeah, every family who needs one had a hotspot.
Every single kid in our district now has access to internet as well. That's not happening in many places. Let me say that again. It's not happening in many places. So my hat's off to you as trustees and to the administration for really focusing and putting the taxpayers' dollars where I believe they need to be, and that's providing instructional resources for our kids. So kudos to you all as a school board.
Dr.
Thank
Scott,
you very much.
and we'll defer most of that credit to the strategic plan, which was made up of administrators and teachers and staff and parents. Well, I think we only had 2 board members on there. So, I mean, thank you for that, but absolutely there were more people involved in that one-on-one decision. In fact, I think according to the last email, 500 of them still have those devices at home. So we should be ready to go virtual here in the next couple of weeks. Hopefully we get those back, or at least get those accounted for. I just want to thank everybody who worked on this plan. Lisa, you could have put masks in there. You could have put no masks. You could have put, you could have left it blank. You could have put masks question marks. We were going to have that discussion. So don't think that because we had that spirited and informative and opinionated discussion that by any means that plan was anything less than spectacular or stellar. So thank you for that effort. All of you who contributed to that, I agree with 99.999% of that. You know, we got to do what's as safe as possible, and I think there's a couple of points that we just need to get some parent feedback on, and so thank you for all of that. I don't know if we touched on what happens when we have a positive test, or if that's a different conversation, or if that's something that Dr. Scott, you might want to touch on. I'm sure we have protocols for that. I mean, I sound silly saying do we, but I'm sure we do. But I don't know if we need to have a conversation around those sooner or later.
Well, I will tell you that again, we've been given limited guidance on what to do. I mean, the guidance is extremely broad. It goes from closing the entire school down to, if there's a positive case in a classroom, to where that student is removed. You send in your cleaning crew, they clean the classroom stays closed for 3 days, but the rest of the school continues to function. I will tell you, because we haven't gotten into one of those cases yet, I'm gonna resist as much as possible for closing the district down. I'm probably gonna, my approach at this point is probably going to address the area that needs to be isolated, whether if it's a classroom or if it's an area, and take that approach. If it becomes a lot of cases throughout the school, then we'll have to do something at the school level instead of shutting down the entire district. So that's gonna be my approach. I don't think it would be a good approach if we have one positive case at a school and then we just shut the entire school district down. I don't think that's a realistic option. It's an option, but I don't think that makes any sense. I don't think that if we have one case and that student had not been, or that teacher had not been around anybody but that cohort, well, then we isolate that cohort. You don't shut the entire school down, because if that's the case, just based on what the numbers are, we would have to shut down schools every other week, and there's no reason for us to go back into the building if that's going to be our approach. So once again, that's why we're trying to put so many what do you call it, mitigating practices in place, and kind of prepping ahead of time so that we can actually avoid these possibilities. We can lower the possibilities that we have these cases. But if in fact we do, we're going to deal with that case. We're going to deal with it case by case. Mm-hmm. So the recommendation is kind of broad. CDC will tell you what to do with that student or with that adult. Mm-hmm. Very limited on what you should do with that environment or the others around it. There are some, but it's not really explicit. Or even TA's guidance isn't that explicit. Mm-hmm. That they're really going to lead the decision making as much as possible at this level, at the local level.
Anybody have anything else?
Question? Did that answer your question, Trustee Stoudemire?
It did. Okay. Yeah. So we don't have hardcore protocols, but we're still learning, and we'll do what's appropriate. Is what I got from that. So, yeah.
There's a lot of information on the Black Cat blueprint also. I think everybody got the email on that one.
Yes, sir. And that actually is the plan that will be published on the website, so parents can read it in full form. I think I emailed that to y'all. Dr. Scott emailed that to y'all today.
Yes. Anybody else have anything? thank everybody for being here, and we'll move to item 3, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion made by, who did that? Trustee DeWitt?
Scartama.
Okay, Trustee DeWitt raised his hand, so he's
Perfect.
making the motion. Is there a second to that motion? Seconded by Trustee Scartama. We'll take a voice vote on it. Clepack, yes. Cole?
What y'all need?
Cole?
Yes.
Manning?
Yes.
Nelson? Nelson?
Come on, coach.
You're muted.
DeWitt?
Yes.
Okay, there's Nelson. DeWitt?
Yes.
Scartama?
Yes.
Tenon?
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries 7-0, so we're adjourned at 8:11. 8:11. Thank you very much and good night.
Thank you all.
Thank y'all.